Hi everyone, so I've got my hands now on Irish paper 2, so we're just going to do a little review over the next 5 or 6 minutes or so just to see what the paper was like. So obviously we only had to answer one comprehension this year, so with that in mind there was 2A, which was about a person, which is about Moira Mochanty, Lech Lore, and the other one then, the second one, was about Ceol Tradiisiúnta na Héireann. Speaking to some of my own students and other students that I would know sitting the Leaving Cert paper this year, comprehension 1 on Moira Mochanty seemed to be the one that most students went with. Students seemed to feel like the answers were a little bit easier. They said the answers were long, however, that they were kind of easier to understand. A lot of it also comes down to the 6A and the 6B question with these. And if we look at the 6A question here for Moira Mochanty comprehension A, you're looking at an example of the Mo Cníleach and an example of the Brithir Ser in the future tense. They're both quite easy to find, so students probably would have preferred doing that. And for your 12-mark question at the bottom, to pick 2 traits associated with the person in question here. Again, students tend to like to do that. It's a bit more structured as a 6B question, so overall I think it was a really nice comprehension. It was answered well and students seem to be happy with it. Comprehension B, it's about a nice topic to traditional Irish music. However, I felt the vocab was a little bit harder in this one as opposed to the first one. And with the 6A as well, they asked you for an example of the Tishal Ginaduk Uha Bon Inchganuk, so a feminine example of the Tishal Ginaduk, singular obviously as well, which would throw a lot of people off doing it straight away. It probably shouldn't have, because it's only really worth 1 mark. If you get either grammar question right, you'll get 2, but it did throw a lot of people off. And the second question was Cunas Chuig and Shluch the Weimert. How did this piece impact you? Again, a lot of people don't like, reading between the lines and expressing how it impacted them. They prefer to do something a bit more factual, like comprehension A, about just picking a trait from what they've read. So because of that, I believe that more people would have done comprehension A. And to give you a quick answer of the question I've got a lot, doesn't matter which one you do, it doesn't matter in the slightest, okay? If you did both, more power to you, and they'll obviously pick your best one then, okay? Moving now on to question 2, the prose. There was no surprise really here with the prose at all. Caucamillish and her Lama book were the 2 that didn't come up last year. So nearly, anyone who's followed the papers at all in the last couple of years would have, assumed that it would be Caucamillish or her Lama book. I know a lot of students are choosing to do the poetry this year for whatever reason, but Caucamillish and her Lama book, Caucamillish last time it was on the papers 2018, her Lama book 2020, so they were the obvious choices. Looking then again at the questions, we've got a question before about Catherine, and we've got a question about Paul in the past, so it made sense that this year's question will be either about the relationship between them or how they interacted with one another. And the question was Tugtar Leabhar doing Sascan an Caucamillish an Godrev idir Catherine agus Paul agus an Tura a bhí an Godrev Shin. So the relationship between them, and that word Tura is important, means the result. What's the result of this relationship? And anyone who's ever seen Caucamillish knows, let's say it's not an overly good ending, not to spoil it for anyone who didn't study it. Her Lama book, Tá Lera sa Ghiota as an Orsca, her Lama book, Bhion Lishin agus an Gui a Moonlian on Mion Shin an Kina Sela ta Eki Fein agus Eg a Tyla. Again, there's not much they can ask about her Lama book really when we're looking at this. About Lishin, her attitude, her mindset, and how that drives herself and her family on. Very straightforward question, very similar to questions that have appeared in the past, different from the 2021, but not too dissimilar from 2017. 2 very fair questions. I think students would be very happy with those, although I don't think many answered them this year. I think most did the poetry. So let's move on to the poetry. I'm sure there was a lot of relieved students when they opened the paper. I'd say nearly everyone went to check what was the poetry question, surprisingly, even though it's only worth 5%. Culscara came up as poem B, so let's start with that. I'm assuming that 85%, if not 90% of the country will have done Culscara. So Daunt Culscara here is Tugan an Fila Kuntas doing Ga Yarka Yifrula Ile an Fosa. Posa P of other SADH is the word for marriage. Ile an Fosa just a Tishal Ginaduk version of it. We get 2 different views of marriage discussed. It's just a contrast question. It doesn't say the word Cudders knocked in it, but that's all it is. It's a contrast question, as it always is with this poem. Number 2, Cain Efech Lavanan Lesh on Da Lina Dernica then Dawn. What's the impact or the effect of the 2 last lines of the poem? So it's basically a question about talk about the sudden ending. Were you expecting it? How did it make you feel? You want to have said something like you're surprised, you weren't expecting it, something along those lines, and it maybe shows the coldness of the break. If you're on anything like that, you're good to go. And finally, the old faithful Kate at Chum on Dawnshire, who wrote the poem, Porek Macsivna, go through his life facts, Donegal, so on and so forth, and then the year he died and some of his past works also. That was an answer you learn off by heart. If you get it done, you know your stuff there. I'm assuming students will do quite well in that question. On Tarakir was the other poem, which was also one that we had tipped up here in the school. We felt it had a very good chance of coming up. It's been on the paper 3 times already, in 2012, 16 and 19, and now this is the 4th time in 2022. The first question was quite a standard fair question. It was about to give an account on the sights and the sounds associated with the life of the island during the poet's youth. Very straightforward question. Talk about all the different things in each image. We nearly get a sound, and we definitely get sights anyway in every single views and every single stanza of this poem. Discuss them in great detail and explain how they're linked to the poet's youth. Okay. Part number 2, Creating Gok verse leis na focal san arakir. Every verse finishes with the word san arakir. Kain Tavik Tavan leis an ahra. We know ahra is repetition. What's the importance of the repetition? Well, you could say things like it reminds us where this place actually is, why it's his Archduke, that's most important to him, so on and so forth. It also gives the poem quite a musical feel. Any of those points well developed will get you your marks. And finally, again, who wrote the poem? Short note on the life and on the work of the poet. Again, so you're good to go there with Mortino Diron. Born in Galway, you know his work, you know his life facts, you get that down on paper, you get your marks. I think students couldn't be happier really with the poetry section. Very, very nice set of questions there. Last thing here is the Literature of Resha. The one I tend to focus in on is on trio, and I was very happy with the question myself. I think my classes will be as well, simply because this question has come up twice. It's come up in 2013 and 2017, and it hasn't appeared in a very, very long time. So I was quite hopeful this year that a question like this would come up, and thankfully it did. It's basically a question about Porrick, how Porrick gets control of Moira. Irene le Porrick McCorhig smachtun an aller eigna agus vuchan and chalin og Moira ni kahasig agus ekin she gadair as a grado. So it's just a Porrick question, and then at the end it says ekin she gadair. She pays dearly for her love for him, which basically, how do we know she pays dearly for it? Well, she's thrown out of her family. She spends time in the Magna Laundries in these homes. She's basically left on the edge of society. She's marginalised. She's shunned by everyone in society, the church included, and finally she dies and her child dies. So, that's how she pays dearly for it, by using those examples at the end. And for the top bit there, how does he get control over it? Give you your examples of the ring, the fake marriage, the lies, the false promises, all along there. So it's just a Porrick answer with a little bit at the end to show why she paid the heaviest price. Okay, so they're the ones that I wanted to go through with you today. I think students will have done very well today. I think you should be confident in what you've done. Anyone I've spoken to here today were very, very happy leaving the exam, so I think you should be too. So well done. That's your Irish done now for 2022, and hope the rest of the exams go well for you. Thanks.